Hey guys, Jason here. In this video, I'm going to be answering a question nobody asked. How many decks does the Gauntlet actually have? Now, before I answer that question, I feel like I should shed some light on our deck selection philosophy. If you've been following the channel for a while, you might have noticed that we are very fussy when it comes to building new decks. Or at the very least, I'm very fussy. There are a bunch of factors we consider, like how good the deck actually is, its effect on our ecosystem, whether it's too similar to another one of our decks, and just if it's something that we like. Aside from not wanting to waste our time on a deck that we probably won't pursue, the main reason I think this way is because once we build a deck, the intention is to keep it forever. Our decks will go through revisions and, in some cases, extreme overhauls, but the intention is to keep the DNA very much intact and for the deck to live on forever in our Gauntlet canon. And yes, I know what you're thinking, that is a lot of Aquahulkus. So far, every deck that we've deck profiled continues to exist in the Gauntlet canon in some way, shape, or form, and today I'll be going over each and every one of them. Alright, so here we go. I hope you guys like our briefcases. Makes me feel like I'm Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh! These are camera lens cases, I think. I got them at an electronics shop several months ago. So here we go. Here are all of the decks in their glory, or I guess in their deck boxes. Now this Dragon Shield box just contains sleeves, so this isn't a deck. But I guess, space for 2 more deck boxes, so who knows what we could be adding in the future. Anyway, I'm going to try to cover these in release order, but I'm going to try to go fairly quickly because there is a lot to get through. Now starting off, we've got Mono Water in this blue deck box. You'll see the EX over here, which is, well, it's short for extended. So this has a TCG only version as well as a DM13 version. So that's what the EX stands for. A lot of cards in here. Pacific Champion. Mono Water, very cool deck. This is something that Andrew and I really like, and actually even Damien, when he came onto the channel, he really liked Mono Water as well. I think Mono Water is actually very much synonymous with us more so than a lot of other communities because it's a concept that we've been a fan of for quite a while, and I guess other people don't seem to like it as much as we do. Anyway, moving on, another favorite, we've got some Beast Folk Mafia. So this is Water, Nature, Light, Aggro. I think this deck could use an overhaul, especially since Season 2. I feel like we've learned a lot since then. So this is you could say it's an outdated list. Mysterious in a beatdown deck, I don't know. Could work, but maybe could be better with Lucky Ball. Another deck we have, Wave Strikers. So I love Wave Strikers, Damien loves Wave Strikers, I think even Andrew's kind of a fan. Of course, they got Trombo, so we made a version for Season 3. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what you guys think about our Wave Strikers Season 3 deck list. So another thing we have, I guess I kind of forgot what the release order was. I remember these 3 and then the rest I forgot. I think Marino was quite late, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So we've got Marino Initiates over here. I'm not going to open all of the deck boxes, but yeah, I'll open some of them. So I've got Sarius at the front. I think Sarius does very well in this deck, and Marino, as many know, especially Andrew, is one of my favorite decks from the Season 1 card pool. Speaking of favorite decks, here's a favorite of everyone's. It's Twin Cannon Turbo, or I thought that was the outlier, but then I realized it didn't have the EX. So Twin Cannon Turbo, I guess I quite like it. I think our latest list is a little too meme-ish, but I think there are also a lot of ways you can turn it into a more serious kind of deck. Even though I think this version we have is pretty good. I think Reap and Sow could be a very dangerous card, especially if you're able to play it a turn early, which, if you play like any combination of Bronze Arm, Mushroom, Fairy Life, Essence Elf, you'll be able to do more often than not. Who else have we got? Hydrus. Now this is an internet favorite. Of course, we first got a glimpse of Hydrus on Earth Power's channel, but I think a lot of other communities are definitely aware of this deck. Like, I think this deck was quite popular in Singapore, or at least it was quite highly regarded by the Singaporean Duel Masters community at some point in time. Speaking of decks that are highly regarded, we kind of go on the flip side here with Worms. This is our meme deck. We've got Ghost Touch at the front here. So yeah, Mono Dark Worms. I don't quite know how this deck holds up, especially given how the power level has gone up since season 1. Like when I first conceptualized the seasons, I did want them to be able to fight each other and be pretty competitive. With Worms, I feel like they're going to need some sort of overhaul, and that's going to be a real challenge to do. Anyway, moving on, another deck we have, Survivors. Very, very dirty deck. I think Survivors are actually better than Wave Strikers, as much as I hate to admit it, which is kind of funny because Wave Strikers came out later, so you'd think, well, power creep, that gimmick would be better. But no, Survivors, very resilient, very strong, and they have a lot of ways to be consistent. Ooh, all right. So next deck we're going to take a look at, Foul Control. So this is the super old school good stuffs pile. Light, water, dark, fire. Oh, actually, I list the civs over here. I think this was originally supposed to be a holdover from the way we used to make decks. You know, it didn't really pay too much attention to mana ramp and proper synergies, and then we just played a bunch of good stuffs cards and it worked. Now, given how Deck Out has taken over as the premier light, water, dark, fire deck, control deck, I feel like it may be time to give this classic Foul Control another look. Now, the Forcive 4-Boss control style deck has recently been adopted by Earth Power. You know, they put Foul front and center of that, so Forcive, no water. Could that be the future for Foul? I guess we'll have to see. Another deck we have, Dragons. So this is another Gauntlet original, which I'm really happy with. You know, just fire, nature, dragons. You get the high roll, you get Velorica out as possible. You summon Bejeweled early. If your opponent can't stop it, then you pretty much win. Another deck. All right, so here we go. Here's the outlier. So again, like the water deck, we've got it in a bigger deck box because there were a lot of changes that we made for the Season 3 version. Now the outlier was really interesting. We changed like 50% of the deck. Like we took out the Guardian package, so that's 12 cards. We took out Volcanic Arrows, and then we took out something else. I can't quite remember what it was. Really embarrassing. Or maybe it was 16, but I'm pretty sure it was like 20 cards that we swapped. Oh, Rikaboo, that's right. We took out Rikaboo for Fanu. And last but certainly not least, Bolmedius Control, Rub Control, whatever you want to call it. Water, Dark, Fire. I think this deck has definitely been power crept, you know, because of cards like Soul Swap and people really finding ways to abuse that card. I don't know what the feature for this deck is. Maybe it's maybe got to put in more Cranium Clamp. I don't know, but I think Spiral Gate should probably be tested in this version. Alright, so that's it for Season 1. Let's move on to Season 2. So Season 1 had 12 decks. Season 2, I know, had 8 decks. I guess we're gonna, start with Balisk Baj, even though I know this was not the first deck we covered. The first deck we covered was Lost Soul Beat, Return of the King. Balisk Baj, maybe this is what kind of replaces Bolmedius Control as the Rub style color control deck. It is more, well, it can be played more control focused. You know, you don't play those because I guess technically this is kind of a mid-range deck. You got the fast-ish gear with like Hulkus, Logo, Coral, you can go in. Whereas with this is strictly control. You know, you don't really have a fast gear. You just have to get to 12 mana and then spam Balisk Baj if you don't deck your opponent, which probably takes even longer. So Balisk Baj, maybe this is the future of Rub. Or I guess I should say Water, Dark, Fire. Yeah, I don't know, but Balisk Baj, pretty cool. I'm very happy Andrew was able to make it work. Very impressed. Is this the one? So this, here we go. Scarab, Lost Soul Beat. I was talking to somebody from the IDC Discord, and he was telling me about how, you know, Lost Soul is not that consistent in this deck. Maybe there's other dark options that you could toy with, and I think he's certainly onto something. So if, you know, if this deck ever manages to evolve and not play Lost Soul, but still very much focus on Pinsir Scarab and the water elements, we might need to come up with a new name for it. But yeah, this deck is honestly one of my favorite decks from Season 2. I really like it. I think it fits in well in pretty much any format. And look at the sleeves. Don't you just love how the color, this funky bluish greenish color interacts with the civs of the deck, Dark Water Nature. I think it's really cool. Another deck we have, let's see, Hydro Hurricane. So this is a deck that really had to win us over, or rather, had to prove that it wasn't too degenerate. So we obviously introduced some nerfs and we introduced some decks rather that gave it a hard time. But I think Hydro Hurricane's pretty neat, and it's something that's been on my radar personally for a really long time. And it seems as if that it's only in recent years that members of the TCG community, like Hymna from the German Duel Masters community, figured out like how to use it. So very cool, Hydro Hurricane. Warlord Elzonius, very strong card in the TCG realm, very much treated as a beatdown deck, but I think in the OCG, it made its way into some control-esque, or control-oriented decks, I should say. Yeah, a very short discussion from Warlord Elzonius. He's a pretty simple guy, pretty effective, don't know what else to say. So here we go, here's another deck out, which was actually the last deck that we covered in TCG Explored. So this one has the EX version. Really, the main reason we put this in Season 3 was so that we could demo a version with Slash Charger limited to 1. It's still very good, and if you thought that, or rather if you think that Slash Charger should be 0, at 0 copies in a 40-card format, I certainly wouldn't blame you. But yeah, deck out. This deck has grown on me a little bit, as much as I hate to admit it, but it's just so darn strong, it's very easy to hate. Another deck we have, Swap Box. Now this is a deck that I really like. Given the optimizations, I'm not sure if the Season 2 version of Swap Box would still be that good, or maybe it's just because I've been playing with Judgment for too long. It's just so much better than like having to play Searing Wave and Aquaholikas and a bunch of other random stuff. But yeah, Swap Box is a deck that I really like. I feel like in some ways it makes Bolmedius control a little bit obsolete because, well, it gives you access to Soul Swap, which makes summoning Bolmedius a lot easier. Yeah, I don't quite know how to feel about this situation. Finishing off with the Season 2 decks, we've got Mikey's Pliers over here, the resident meme deck. I think Mikey's Pliers is a really cool card to build around, honestly. And, our build is certainly one way to build it. You build it as a mid-range deck. You give it a couple of different gears with the Dark Fire Nature aggro core, like Gonta, Exotic, Gallic. But, you've also got the memes in here, like with Decoaz and Giga Claws. I think there are a couple of different ways to build this one as well. Like, I think there are some lists online that just use Mikey's Pliers to summon a bunch of nature speed attackers. Like, you played with Hardy Cap, you played with the Pig, and a bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, I think Mikey's Pliers, even though it is still kind of a gimmick, pretty versatile card, I should say. When we made the deck profile, we actually got a lot of creative ideas in the comments, like playing this with Gajira Butte, Miraculous Rebirth. It was really cool to see. Here we go, next deck, or I guess last deck for Season 2, Fortress Burn. Now this is another deck that people love to hate. Andrew and Damien certainly didn't like it when I floated the idea. I think in a 40-card format, it's nowhere near as good as it is in a 50-card format. And in some ways, because you kind of put a timer on yourself because of how quickly you go through the deck, one can reasonably argue it's a bit of a mid-range deck. But I'm going to categorize it as control for now. But just keep that thought in the back of your mind, that Fortress Burn in 40 cards could be a mid-range deck. I think this deck is it's a little more balanced in a 40 card format, I should say. You're not able to run as many consistency boosters and as many answers to the current pool, and it of course has a natural weakness to deck out. But yeah, Fortress Burn. Alright, so here are all of the TCG only decks, and here are 5 of the brand new decks that we made from scratch for Season 3. I was about to forget the name TCG Extended. So here we go, Queen Maiden. So this is Water Fire Nature aggro. This is actually the reason that Twin Cannon Turbo isn't as optimized as it could be as a pseudo Bombazar deck. And this is also the reason that we haven't tried to make another Water Fire Nature deck, because I feel like it will be really similar. You gotta play this as an aggro type of deck. Queen Maiden I like very much, and I hope you like the theme of a rainbow-focused deck in a see-through deck box. And also, in case I didn't mention it earlier, the EXs here are the other Season 3 decks. So I did it this way, so when we, lug these around to each other's houses, they're easy to find for when we're testing a particular season. Another deck, Bounce Rush. This is the Water Fire Rush deck that Damien created. The more that we play with it, I feel like it's not as good as I once thought. That could also just be because this deck is also relatively honest compared to the other Season 3 decks, which play much dirtier cards. And I think everything's just a lot more optimized. Maybe everything just kind of caught up with good old Bounce Rush. But this is a really cool deck. I think there are a couple of different ways that we can adapt this, which is cool. So this is something that is definitely going to have a lot of staying power with us, or rather a lot of a deck that could see some future revisions should we choose to mess around. Another deck we've got, Dolge. So Dolge is a strong striker, very cool card. We could not find a way to make this work with Giant and Earth Eaters, so I had to mess with the canon a little bit and bring Giant Insect into the TCG space, or the Holy Fist Saga space, I should say. I'm pretty happy with it. Do you guys think that Dolgeza should have the Giant Insect ruling in a TCG-esque setting? Let me know in the comments. Moving on, we've got Armorloids. This is one of my favorites. I really like this deck. Actually, I like a lot of the decks in Season 3 because they use new color combinations. I feel like in the Duel Masters TCG, there are a lot of color combinations that are just really well established, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to veer away from those. Like Water, Dark, Fire, Nature, like Water, Light, Water, Dark. These are combos that you see together a lot. What else was there? Water, Fire, Nature. But I think in the TCG you don't really see Light, Fire, Nature that much, which I really like. And I'm always down to explore new color combinations for our decks. I really like experimenting with different 3-civ combos. But understandably, they don't always work. There's a reason that the established color combos are, well, established. And to finish things off, the last deck, speaking of new color combinations, we've got Ozesu, Light Dark Nature. I think this deck was so much work to make, but I'm glad we got there in the end. I think this deck's origins can be traced all the way back to Season 1, and with Alcadeus being a focus of the deck, you could reasonably argue that I will reasonably argue that Alcadeus, all the way back from before we did TCG Revamped, like several years ago, I did Light Water Alcadeus deck profile. This is probably what I would say it evolved into. So many cards changed, but Alcadeus remained, and, well, the Angel Commands are here to play. So here we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 different decks ready to go. No cards need to be swapped. We can just pick up and play. And if you count the EX versions of existing decks, we've actually got 30. But I'll just say 25 for now. Alright, so I hope that wasn't too long of a video, and I hope you guys enjoyed that discussion. I honestly feel like these decks have so many stories behind them, and I could just sit and talk about them for hours. I feel like that says more about me as a person than anything else. Yikes. But anyway, if you guys have any cool stories about your decks that you'd like to share, I'd love to read about them in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.